Starting with the Principal's Office podcast, I got a special guest with me today for our first ever podcast.
Woo-woo.
Liza Landis. She's our PTSO president and also a member of the West Orange community. But I'm just talking to Liza today about her life. And, you know, what we want to do with this podcast is talk to the West Orange community, our students, our family, our parents, just about, you know, the journeys they're going through, but also ask people their stories and why they do what they do and how they got to where they are. And so I figured it would be important for, if we're going to ask people to share, that we share.
Absolutely.
Right?
The stories matter.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, I'd love to learn a bit more about you today, and maybe you can learn a bit about me and my story and how we got here. So, you know, first talk to me about your story about how you got to helping West Orange out with your role in the PTSO.
Well, I think it's kind of, in order to talk about that story, you talk about my whys. And I think any story, really, getting somebody from A to B is going to be what pushes you to get there. And I grew up in a family where my dad was military. He was Army. My mom was a high school teacher. And the philosophy is so much in our home was always service. And what do you do to serve others? Because my parents really clearly understood that at the end of the day, what makes us entitled is not having gratitude. When you are grateful, you're not entitled. And if you're grateful, you want to give back. And so the more you serve, you're constantly in that mode of saying, I am grateful enough to serve. And I think in every capacity that I've been in my life, I've always looked for an avenue where I can say, how do I give back? Especially those impacting my family, impacting my life. So I have had a daughter who graduated from West Orange, and then I have two that are currently here. And I look around and I think, man, having a mom as a high school teacher, I know what these teachers give every single day. I know what the administration gives. I know what everybody does. So my gratefulness in what they are doing drives me to say, well, what can I do to give back? Yeah. And I think it's also one of those things always where everything you have is either a tool or a toy, right? So whether it's your time, whether it's your physical things, and if you have toys, you want to hold on to them. If you have tools, and that could be just the things you're actually able to do, it's what can I do to give it away? How can I help with this? And I think for me, the one tool I have might be expertise that I have to be able to help organizations or schools. And so I go, number one, I want to serve because I'm grateful. Yeah. And number two, I'm not going to hold on to the things I'm able to do. Why am I not using them to help others and organizations? So it's just an automatic for me to desire to serve and being in a position where I have the time to do so. And I know a lot of people don't. So, you know, if there's moms who have to be full-time and they work full-time and they don't have the option to be super involved, I get that in its seasons of life, but for me, that's kind of why I do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And actually, since I'm playing with my podcast machine, let me give you a round of applause. We can't hear it right now, but we'll be on the podcast. There we go. No, it's amazing to hear, and I love hearing your point of view. You know, it's like you see anyone in this place, and how did you get here? And that's a cool way to get here and how to give back. And obviously, we appreciate all the work you do, and just your perspective is good. It's always good to have. Yeah, it's good.
But how did you get here?
No, it's actually, you know, in my opinion, a little bit of an interesting story. Yeah. So, you know, it kind of goes back to high school, and I would volunteer to be a youth coach in my little small town of Kansas. So I would coach all these little kids just in any sport. I didn't know soccer, but I'm just coaching soccer. So I got to know all these kids in the town, like literally knew every single kid. So I just really loved being around kids. And then I went to college, and I was playing some professional basketball. And when I got done with that, I just realized I was good around kids. And most of my passion at the time, not anymore as much, but was basketball. Yep. So I would coach kids in basketball, and then I gravitated up to high school because that's where the high school basketball was, and I really got in with that. And so, you know, I moved to Florida, and I started coaching basketball, and it was great. Mm-hmm. And I did that for a while, but then I started kind of, not even on my own choice, but dipping into admin stuff, and I just wanted to do everything so well. And I really just started getting bored of sports. Like, I loved sports, I loved playing sports, but I didn't want that to be my whole life. And so I'm like, this academic stuff is more important to me. But I didn't know really how that looked. But really I didn't have any intention to be a principal. I didn't, you know, I wasn't dreaming of it when I was a kid.
I want to be at the principal's office all day long when I'm an adult.
Right. I want to yell at kids, you know, because that's what they think the principal's doing, is yelling at kids.
Totally.
No, I didn't want to do that. I had no desire. But then the more I got closer to admin, so I was a teacher, and then I switched schools to become a basketball coach at a different school. Okay. I went from Oak Ridge to Edgewater. And when I went to Edgewater, they were like, hey, we'll take you, but we need you to be a dean. And I'm like, okay, sure. And when you're a dean, you're not necessarily an admin, but you're seeing the admin side. And so as I'm seeing the admin side, I'm like, I just didn't like how some things were going, And so I didn't think, I'm going to be a principal. I'm going to change the system. Right. I just thought, I think I could do that better. So I think I'll be an assistant principal. But you have to I had a master's degree, but you have to have a different one. So I was like, I'll go get this master's degree, And then, then I became an assistant principal, and I'm an assistant. They put me at a middle school that I had never been around middle school kids. These kids are running around and screaming and, they're like, I'm like, what is happening?
Why am I here?
Yeah, like, what am I doing?
This is not my sweet spot.
This is not. But I just love kids so much, and my heart went out for them because they were so goofy. They're not elementary, they're not high school, they just need help.
They just need help in everything.
Right, yeah. So I remember, I'm doing it, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Yeah. And then the not my principal, but the principal's boss came by one day, and she was like, how do you think you're doing? I'm like, I have no idea. Right. Like, I love these kids. I'm trying so hard, but I don't know, She's like, no, you're doing great. And it was that point they were like, you're going to go far fast, And really, I just wanted to do the job of a principal because I just wanted to be able to make the most change. I wanted to make sure the teachers felt valued, to know that they have hard work, and this is not because of the podcast today, but I sent some emails to my daughter's teachers at Boone High School because I just wanted to tell them they're doing great because she's telling me that they're doing great, but just to treat the teachers with value and respect, understand that, we all need accountability. Yeah. Everybody does. I need it, they need it, but also to say, we trust you to do your jobs. That's part of the reason, but really I just wanted to make it the best high school experience for the kids. That's what I want. So when people ask me, like, what's your goal at West Orange? It's just to make it the best high school experience for the kids. I want football games to be fun. I want prom to be fun. I want everyone to go to homecoming.
Right.
Like, these are memorable experiences. So, that's why I do what I do, because I love being around the kids, but I just want them to have such a good experience. I want them to look back, and they don't have to credit me. I just want them to look back and say, West Orange was a place I really had a great high school experience. And
I was seen.
Yeah. And, I had opportunities to get involved with stuff. And the last part of kind of my why about being an educator is, I felt the reachings of a little bit of poverty when I was a kid. My parents were public educators. They didn't make any money, but we weren't poor by any means, right? We were struggling, but we had three kids in the family, but not to what our students do. But my dad's mother, I don't believe, went to high school. His father was a truck driver, so he knew poverty. And so I have a real big soft spot for kids in poverty. Yep. And kids struggling, even if they're above the poverty line. So I worked at Oak Ridge, Jones, Evans, Edgewater. So I'd see kids. I'd bring, sandwich food every day for kids to eat because they didn't have money to eat, things like that. And so part of my passion is helping kids that don't have enough. When I hear a kid here is working, has a job, it makes me want to help them more because I know it's not easy to be a student and have a job. And I didn't have to have a job when I was a kid. My kids don't have that. They have they don't have to worry about that. But it brings a lot of respect for me. And really what I want to do is level the playing field for them. So if they're working, I don't want them to have to pay for a prom ticket if they can't afford it, just because my kids don't have to worry about where the money came from for a prom ticket.
And a lot of those kids are not only working, but they're going home and maneuvering and handling a lot of the adult kind of responsibilities in their homes, that because they're at the poverty line.
Yeah.
And so then talk about playing field. They're coming in here with no sleep because they were helping with a little sibling all night long or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's just not as easy as, the kids in all our situations that go home and get their meals made for them and get to play in their sports and good life,
Yeah.
Those kids know how to get grit.
Sure.
We were just talking before the podcast started about grit.
Yeah.
And what allows us to actually have grit.
Yeah.
And I think, those kids know about grit.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I tell the story of when I was at the middle school as a principal, I had 11-year-olds riding a city bus. Yeah, can you imagine? No. 11-year-old girls riding a city bus. Can you imagine even our 16-year-old boys sometimes riding a city bus? They wouldn't be able to do it, and just the amount it takes to do that, And I do think, another part of that for me is it's always a fine line because we want to listen to the kids and we want them to give us feedback, but sometimes the kids may not know best. Right. I have this saying that I say a lot, as I say, I have to have your 25-year-old self respect me for the decisions I'm making for you now. Yep. If your 16-year-old self doesn't understand, I'm okay with that. I'm listening to you, but I can understand that. But I need your 25-year-old self to respect that. I feel like my athletes that I coached over the basketball careers, they didn't love me at the moment because I was hard on them, but they all came back at 25 and said thank you. Not all, but most, and said thank you for pushing me. And I think that's what we got to do. And I think, that's another goal of mine for West Orange is to make sure that kids can get where they want to go.
Right.
So if they want to get to Harvard, we need to provide an avenue for that to happen. If they want to get to UF, we want to provide that avenue. If they want to be a welder, we want to provide that avenue. And I know UF grads that aren't making as much as welders.
Well, of course, yeah. So, I mean, some of those other basic positions we call in society actually make the most and are most stable.
Yeah.
But I think to your point of what you just said is creating the relationship, right? Like for you to go, I am somebody that can be trusted. When a kid comes to me, they know that they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so kind of to what your point is, I remember my dad always saying what can make you really smart is knowing that there's a lot you don't know. So surround yourself with people who do know those things already and learn from them and be open to listening.
Yeah.
And I think if you're closed off to taking advice, but you creating an environment here where people can walk into your office and know, hey, I don't know how to do these things well, and I realize I'm 16 and not 25.
Yeah.
So I'm going to listen, but you have to be able to build that camaraderie.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, you can't build trust.
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing for me in my role is that I've always been in roles where I was more approachable just by title,
sure.
Dean and things. So I really try hard to make sure the doors are open, but I understand sometimes it's intimidating to talk to the principal, and I'm a foot taller than everyone else, and it's one of those things. But I think that's the why we're here. So, and we get to see you as PTSO president,
sure.
But what about the other half?
The other half of me that's actually at home, but the kids go, you don't actually put the happy mask on. The real side of me on the other side. No,
that's right.
No, for brief version of my story. I obviously have an accent, and people have probably spent most of the podcast going, was it Australia? Was it England? And you're all wrong. So I was born and raised in South Africa and lived there until I was a junior in high school. I did live in Namibia for 4 years, which was super fun and interesting. It's in the middle of the desert.
Wow.
Most people don't know where that is. It's on the southwest coast of Africa.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Yeah, it became famous when Angelina and Brad had their twins, because that's where they had their twins. And people were like, wait, there's a country there? Yes, it is, in the middle of the desert. But phenomenal 4 years of my life in middle school. And small town in the middle of nowhere. And then we moved to the States because my dad was a diplomat. He was, as I had mentioned, military. He ended his career as a general, but came and represented the South African Defense Force here at the embassy.
Cool.
So we moved to DC, which was a huge culture shock my junior year of high school.
I bet.
And walked in and was like, wait, they actually do have yellow school buses and lockers. This is literally Saved by the Bell. I am living Saved by the Bell right now. This is insane. But had expected to only be here for 4 years, because that's normally the diplomatic term. And then my dad got an opportunity to be sponsored for a visa to stay. And I remember us sitting around the round table and my dad saying, okay, we have this opportunity to stay, but it means we're starting from scratch. All our contacts and stuff are overseas, so we're starting the American dream. Are we all or not? We're doing this. And so he said, we're all going to work, we're all going to do whatever it takes to do this. And if it's easy, if it's hard, we'd be grateful that we're here. And so anyway, we stayed. It was not easy. Building an American dream here is not easy, as it shouldn't be, because you should have to work really hard.
Yeah, sure.
And so there were 10 years of really survival, and then things started turning around and building, and we were able to build the dream here, which is amazing. Went to college in Pennsylvania, studied international business and political science, and did international business for a few years after school, and then got into corporate event planning, and I could do the international business with it because I worked for a company in DC where we did meetings all over the world. So it was like those big conferences, the 20,000 people conferences.
Yeah. Cool.
So got to travel to some really great locations with that, and came back, and then got married. I've been married for 25 years, And so Greg's an entrepreneur and builds his own businesses. So I worked with him for a little while, and then we had kids. And really was blessed enough to be able to stay home with the kids. Yeah. But I'm very much of I love learning. So even though I was at home, quote unquote, at home with the kids, always look for ways to be involved and continue to learn skills, continue to whatever. And was always passionate, kind of similarly, like in that coaching space. Like, what can I do on a daily basis that once I've spent time with a person, they feel better once I left? Yeah. Like, and how can I learn how to understand people more, personalities, all this stuff. So I got certified as a life coach, which was super interesting, and then was like, well, I like doing this with teams, kind of in that same, coaching thing. And I was like, all right, let me get certified in doing executive coaching, so I can go into a team and analyze, is this team actually functioning well? And why not? And is it individuals? Is it just the way the team's doing it? So that I thought was just fascinating. So got really passionate about doing a lot of that stuff, and then really kind of got into coaching in that capacity as well. And so got to do that really just throughout the kids. As the kids have gotten older, it's easier to do more time because they're at school more of the day. Yeah. And I think I laugh sometimes because I think maybe I got all of the certifications to just coach my own children through life.
It's working.
and so they always say to me, they ask me a question and they say, we just want mom or we want the coach. So which hat are you wearing? So that's really what I enjoy doing. And really, it's one of those kind of skills where I just love people's stories. I mean, I just am fascinated by people at the end of the day. I love knowing what got them to where they are and why, whether their story's super hard. And sometimes when a kid's story is super easy, it's sometimes harder to actually get somewhere sometimes because they haven't built the grit early on. Yeah. And how do you, when your kids are in an environment where they are given a lot of things and a lot of opportunities, how do you build work ethic? How do you allow them to remember what it takes to get somewhere and not just be handed things? Right. And so really kind of working on both ends of the spectrum. But I think my favorite moments is when you're talking to somebody or talking to a group and you just see the light bulb go on. And they go, man, I have the capacity to make a change in my life. Yeah. And I always say, are you uncomfortable? Like, what makes you uncomfortable? Because when you're super uncomfortable, you change. Yeah. Discomfort, the levels of discomfort equals the levels of change. Sure. And so, I always kind of try and find, like, what's something where people say, I don't want my life to look like this. Okay, well, you seem comfortable in your life. Why are you going to change? Yeah. You have to get uncomfortable. You have to put yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable. Yeah. And sometimes for me, it's having to learn new things, and I always feel like I learn the most when I have put myself in a situation where I'm uncomfortable and I have to figure it out. Yeah. And so not to fear failure, and not to fear doing things that you wouldn't necessarily do. Yeah. So where do you feel like, even maintaining confidentiality, of course, of people you work with, but where are most of the changes coming from when you say they want to change? Are those like lifestyle choices with diet and exercise, or was it other I think
things?
It's a combo. I think, it depends on the generation we're talking to, right? Because I think when I'm meeting with people who are 35 plus, I think the things that are driving them, they're kind of suddenly going, what's my purpose in life? Yeah. I've done all this. Now I'm here. I've either built a really great career and I actually hate it, but now I'm stuck with a high mortgage and I can do nothing. Yeah. Or I have reached what I wanted to reach. I got to be a principal, but now what? Yeah. Right? Like, what is the next thing that's driving me? So I feel like that's kind of where they are, and they're going, I want to change because I don't want to be stuck. So I feel like being stuck for the older meaning like 40s and 50s. Sure. And I'm in that category, so I can call myself old.
We're there with you.
So, like, kind of going, what's the new lens we're putting on, right? Like, what do we want to do? I think when I look at my kids' age, high school age, I think pressure, anxiety, just feeling like they don't know what to do next, comparison with social media, and always, and I think sometimes they don't even really know what they want. I feel like because we didn't constantly compare ourselves to 30 other people going, maybe I should be doing what they're doing. No, what do you want to do? Who are you created to be? Like, what are you good at? What drives you? What do you get excited about? And trying to find what actually they are without comparing it to the millions of things around them, I feel like is the biggest challenge.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool to hear, because you see that and it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to sift through that for teenagers, I'm sure.
So hard. Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm like, no, even my own kids, they'll, I don't have to do the confidentiality thing with them because I can talk about them all I want all day. No, but I mean, they'll come and, I'm talking to my junior now who's going to go to college in 2 years, and she's like, I don't know what I want to do. Yeah. And it's not just a simple, let's go to the career center and do the test, right? It's because so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that. Maybe that looks better and people are going, oh, wow, that's amazing. So I want to get that. That's amazing. So I'm like, no. Like, where do you see yourself? Like, when she loves working with little kids, I'm like, so if you want to be a teacher, be a teacher. Yeah. Like, so what if people are like, that's a profession you don't necessarily want to do because in the public system today, you know, all the things. And I'm like, be who you need to be. Yeah. But it's so hard because of the comparison. We didn't have to deal with that.
And the validation, I feel.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I've had students like, it sounds funny, and I'm certainly not making fun of it because I do understand it, but be upset because a post didn't get enough likes or, you know, it's like, it's validation.
But I think too, a lot of it, and I talked to my kids, I actually just had a conversation with my youngest about this the other day, is how do we expect this generation who everything is looking at self? I mean, you literally have selfies all day long.
All day, yeah, true.
Even the way you communicate with your peers is through Snapchat, which is sending a picture of yourself.
Right.
So I'm like, how do you, when you're 76 times a day looking at a vision of yourself, not think about yourself first and think about others?
Yeah, that's true.
Because when you're actually focusing out is when you're actually going to find your purpose, because then you're going to see where the need is. Yeah. But when you're looking at yourself, it's entitlement, because all the need is, how do I get the likes? Yeah. How do am I looking what everybody else is looking like, and so I'm going to be accepted? Yeah. Versus going, no, let me give, and when I give, I find my purpose, and in that's enough satisfaction. Yeah. I don't need all the likes. Yeah. You know, how do we shift that in this generation is hard. It's so hard.
No, I totally agree. It's My daughter and I have this thing. She's in 9th grade, and we'll have this thing where I'll imitate like how teenage girls talk and stuff, right? So, I noticed like she posted something, and she's very modest. She's very, I would say, conservative, right? She posts something. It's just a normal picture, and it's like, all the comments. Oh my gosh, you're so cute. Oh my.
And first of all, let's just talk for a second about, they don't just say, OMG, you look so cute. It's OMG, next post. You look so cute. Next post. Right. The same person. Post 17 posts. I'm like, really? We can't write a full sentence?
I know. It's the validation, right? But it's almost like if they and I know why they do it is because they want to lift up their friends. They want to support their friends and stuff. It's just a different way of looking at things.
And so much of being validated is on what you look like or who you are versus the things you do. Yeah. Right.
And that's the narrative that I wish we could change, right? You know, what you do.
And there are ways to change that. And I think it's the awareness for the kids to realize that is not what life is all about. Yeah. Now, do I think you should know yourself? I think sometimes, and I talk to my kids all the time, know your weaknesses more than your strengths. Yeah. Because when you know your weaknesses, you know who you need to surround yourself with to teach you or to make you better. Yeah. Like every day, are you walking out of that day going, I learned how to be better today? Yeah. And sometimes we fail. We all do. I fail tons of times. Yeah. But I'm like, you know, if you go on the path more consistently with saying my desire is to be a better version of myself today, you're going to be a better version of yourself in a week. Yeah. But if you're like, ugh, and I think it comes down to kindness, you know, kindness to yourself, but also kindness to others. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think is huge, huge. I'm like, you're not going to lose with kindness ever.
No, you're right. And you see sometimes you feel like the most well-adjusted people are the ones that are taking an active role in kindness for themselves and others. You know, it's so hard to know what's going on behind the scenes, but that's part of it.
You have to have empathy for yourself, but also in order to do that, have empathy for others.
Yeah, and not to get off track too much, but I think a pressing issue for me in that is what do you do? What would you do if you have a person and we'll say teen because that's what we're dealing with. They're just insecure. Like, how do you fix insecurity in a teenager? What do you do?
I think a lot of it is that they probably don't know themselves. Okay. So because they're insecure, because why? Because they're insecure when they compare themselves to 10 other people and they don't match up. So I go, okay, but so what if that person plays soccer well? Do you want to play soccer? Oh, no. Oh, but you can sing extraordinarily well? Well, then that's your thing. Yeah. So let's hone in on what you're good at and what creates you. Yeah. So stop looking at everybody else, because I think sometimes we can feel very confident if we actually look at the skills we have to do and we focus on those. Yeah. You're in your sweet spot doing a principal and you go, okay, there's challenges to this job, but I know I can do this well, and that's why I'm doing it well. Yeah. But if you were focused on like what every single person here is doing and what you're therefore not good at, like, you're going to feel crap about yourself every day. Yeah. And so I think it's first going, let's get to know you. Who are you? Let introduce you to yourself. Like, relearn who you are. Yeah. without the voices of everybody else around you.
Yeah.
And when you actually know yourself and can start building on that character of who you are or who you want to be necessarily. I mean, sometimes I don't even know who they are. And then I go, okay, but who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Like outside of all the voices, let's sit down and go, okay, this is me. What makes up me? I have family, I have friends, I have sports or maybe music or theater or whatever it is that you... All right, so who are you? Let's get to know you. Get a master's in yourself first.
Yeah, true.
Good and bad.
Yeah, it's good, good advice.
So that's kind of what I do a lot with kids.
Good.
It's hard though.
You know, it feels like to me there's a sweet spot with comparison and competition versus just kind of being your own. You know,
Totally.
like in this job there's 23 high schools in Orange County. We meet a lot. We were all together yesterday. Some all of them really great people. I can't be them.
No, you can't.
And they can't be me.
Nope.
And so it's like we collaborate to learn from each other, but also we have to kind of do our own things and trust our own
But they might
guts.
look at something you're doing and going, man, I wouldn't have come up with that program because I'm not him.
Right.
But I'm going to utilize that. And you're the same way with them.
Creativity.
And go, how do we go look at this and go, this is my little place of weakness. So how can I look at all of you guys and say, knowing that this is my weak spot, how can I draw in from what you guys are doing to enhance this piece that I wouldn't necessarily do well?
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think it's really good advice. It's an interesting conversation for sure.
And accountability.
Yeah.
You know, and not being afraid for people to push you.
Yeah.
You know, and having weaknesses is not a weakness. Like having weaknesses and knowing them is actually your strength.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's good advice. That's a good quote right there. If I had a
quote
button for it's it's laughter.
That's funny.
Not funny. Good one. I pushed the laughter.
But talking about laughter, I do think laughter is a key, and I think humor, fun, and you talked about this when you talked about why you became a principal. You want to make a fun environment, and I do think in teenagers specifically, they sometimes forget how to just have fun.
Yeah.
Because there are so many pressures academically or sports or whatever thing that you're involved in.
Yeah.
The pressure can so take away from just sometimes simply like, I ask my kids all the time, when last have you laughed? Like,
that's good.
You need to laugh.
Laughter.
Laughter. There we go. Like, it is just so important because we know, I mean, we've lived a lot longer in life now.
Yeah.
If going through the hardest things in our life, we weren't able to laugh at some of that stuff, you don't get through it.
No.
You absolutely don't. You have to have humor.
Yeah. Well, I think if you asked most adults, if you had to go back and do high school again, they probably wouldn't say, I wish I would have taken more AP classes.
I wish I took that one AP class that pushed me.
Yeah. No, they would say, I wish I did this. I tell this part of my story a lot to the kids here. As I was an athlete, two-sport athlete. That's all I did. But most of my memories of high school were from choir. I love the choir.
It's so great.
I love singing.
Yep.
I wasn't great, but I love singing. But I love the teacher. But, you know, I tell Tara, our theater teacher, the only regret I have from high school is I wish I would have tried a theater production just because I like to sing. And I'm not a good actor, but I'm sure she could have helped me or whoever it was. But just I don't regret, you know, and I'll get into that more in my academic history, but I don't regret. I regret not having more fun.
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
I won't regret like the grind.
When Greg listens to this, he's going to clap for you. Yeah, because he tries to get my kids to get involved in theater and singing because they both can sing.
Yeah,
and they're the same thing. They're both two sport athletes and they're doing their thing and they sing and dance all day at home. And he's like, you do know that there's a theater program that's really, really good at your school. You know, you should just try it for one time. And then Caitlin even said, well, if they do Mamma Mia, which they did last year, and he goes, fascinating, Caitlin, Mamma Mia. And she's like, I don't have time, blah, blah. You know, but it is. It's you don't want to look back.
Actually, one of my best memories from the 5 years at West Orange was Jaden Floyd, which one of our football players. He did the spring musical, and he was up on stage doing this dance, you know.
So great.
But and also it's
so
like
great.
Sometimes we talk about it in theater and acting, how sometimes the actors are a little shorter than we think, you know, like Tom Cruise is short.
They are very short.
So I'm always worried about me being on stage being a giant, right? But Jaden was he's probably like, I don't know, Jaden, if you're watching, maybe 6'1", but he looked like he was 9 feet tall because he's
compared to all the others.
He's enormous. He's a big kid. He ended up playing football in college and great kid, but just him doing something that you wouldn't normally see someone else doing.
Put it out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do something. It's so good. And you do laugh because you're forced to laugh. Yeah. Okay, so looking back at high school for you, like what do you think was your biggest challenge?
I think, you know, and I can get into the story and it won't take long, but I think my biggest challenge was low expectations. I think, my dad had great intentions, but they came from nothing.
Yep.
And so survival was just the goal and not thriving. And so I had low expectations. So I was a double sport athlete. I was a very good tennis player. I was an okay basketball player. I wanted that to switch, and it did because I worked at it.
Yep.
But they didn't. I was going to get a scholarship. So they weren't like, hey, take this AP class. So I didn't take any AP classes. I didn't take any rigorous courses. We only needed 2 maths, so I took Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. I never even took geometry.
That's crazy.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
I had a 21 on my ACT. Took it once.
And you were like, I'm done. I took the test.
Took it once.
Yep.
But, sometimes you got to tell the end of the story to tell the beginning of the story. But I don't know. As you know, I have finished law school. I passed the Florida bar, which is one of the hardest bars in the country.
Absolutely.
How many people in the country?
Clap.
Oh yeah, clap. Wait, where is it?
Clap.
Hey,
Yay.
yeah, right.
That's a big deal.
Well, I'll do the twinkle one. Wow. But how many people have done that in the country with a 21 on their ACT? Probably none. I probably have the lowest one in the history, which kind of goes into my story. But to do well on a standardized test, you have to have coursework to do well. It's not it's not an IQ test. It's, have you taken these high level classes? And I hadn't, so I was low. And I had low expectations for myself. So, because I was going to do my athlete thing. And so, really the crux of my story is, you may not know it from walking around here because I'm very nice most of the time, but I'm very competitive. And I think some people say because they want to win, they're competitive. But to me, that's not what competition is. If I'm going to bowling, I don't care if I win because I'm not a bowler and I don't practice bowling. I'm a good athlete, but I don't practice bowling. Competitive to me is strategizing ways to win, strategizing ways to get better, preparation, effort, and a self-understanding of what your weaknesses are, like you talk about, and trying to maximize those or get around them when it comes to sport or whatever you're doing. And so, I did an undergrad. I had just bad grades. They weren't great. And the people watching this are like, oh my gosh, my principal had a 21 on his ACT. And he
got it at 21. I'm good.
Right. He had, fast forward. I did pass the bar, so that's hard.
You still work hard.
I'm in the top, there. But, so I finished undergrad, didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I ended up playing professional basketball for a while. Honestly, I can make that a long story, but I stopped just because I wasn't helping anyone. I'm living a selfish lifestyle. I got to come back. I'm living in Brazil. I'm like, I got to come back and do something else, So I came back and started teaching, and really like that. But, I the hunger for me wanting to do more, started with competition. So I'm like, I become an assistant principal and I realize that I'm doing well. They're telling me I'm doing well. I'm working my tail off. And I'm seeing these people around me with these advanced degrees and they're being promoted. They have doctorate in education. And I didn't want to get a doctorate in education. A lot of people had it. I didn't want something similar to what they had. Sounds bad, but I didn't want to drive to UCF. So
you're like 45 minutes.
Yeah, so I decide, I'm like, I'm just going to apply to law school. So there's a test that you take. It's called the LSAT. It's the weirdest test in the history of tests. Doesn't test any knowledge. It tests spatial reasoning. It's super weird. I don't know if you know anything about it. It's like it'll give you but here's the difference about the LSAT. It'll give you 5 scenarios, and the scenarios are like a puzzle. Like Jimmy's wearing a blue shirt, but Jimmy ate lunch after Sarah, and she's wearing a green shirt, and you have to get them in order.
Right.
But what you have to do is you only have 25 minutes to do 5 puzzles. Puzzle 1 should take you about 10 minutes, but puzzle 5 will only take you 2 minutes. So if you look at it sequentially, which most people do, you never get done. You fail.
Yeah.
If you look at it like this, I'm going to start with 5 because I can do it. So you read really quick, figure out which one's the easiest one, and you go. It's strategy. Well, I am not the smartest guy, but I'm good at strategy.
But strategy gets you far in life.
Yeah. You have to, I'm a little bit of like a tactician, it's like I'm playing chess and not checkers, I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm going to, so I don't, most people study for the LSAT for months. I got a book. I did 2 practice tests, signed up for it, took it 3 weeks later, got an average score, didn't do great.
Yep.
And then I applied to FAMU Law, which is where I wanted to go, best law school in the country, and for me, and it's right downtown. I didn't get in. So the following, I'm like,
what did you do with that disappointment?
Nothing.
It just drove you to do more?
No, because I wasn't necessarily sold on going.
Okay.
And again, I still have low expectations in the back of my head.
Right, yeah.
can I really do this? Can an idiot
Maybe this is my sign. I can't do it. Yeah,
exactly. Can an idiot like me with a 21 on his ACT? I've never been that academic. I don't feel like I'm better than anyone. You know, when you think of lawyers, you think how smart these people are. Mm-hmm. So, but me, I think the thing that differentiates me is I believe I can do anything. Even if I'm stupid for it, I believe I can do anything. I believe if someone else can do it, why can't I?
Why can't I?
Right?
Yeah.
It takes work. You know, I believe for our kids of neuroplasticity, if a kid walks into my office right now with a 1.0 GPA and they say, I want to go to medical school, yes, you can do
get
it.
There. Yeah, anybody can get there.
You can do it, but you're going to have to work your butt off.
Yep.
If it doesn't come natural, you're going to have to work your butt off. Learning for me didn't come natural. When I was a basketball player, learning plays was hard for me. What came natural for me was the grind of tests. I could go in there and focus for 4 hours and not even blink, so that I knew my strength. Yep. You know, so I was going to play to my strengths. But again, I didn't know necessarily that, one, I could do it, two, I could finance it, three, that I could actually finish it, because I knew I would be the dumbest person in the room when I got in. But I was dumb enough to think I could do it.
Yeah.
So I was going to retake it, I just never did. The following summer, I just changed the dates and reapplied. So the previous summer, I had heard mid-July that I didn't get in. So it's late July, so I call over there. It's a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Have you heard me tell this before?
No.
Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. I call over there, and this is exactly how the conversation went. I said, hey, I applied. I don't know if I got in. Last year I applied, didn't get in. I knew like 2 weeks before this, so I don't care one way or the other. I just want to know, right? So she goes, oh, that's interesting. She goes, well, the lady that was supposed to adjudicate your case, whether you got in, is out on medical leave. She was supposed to make a decision before she left. She goes, so let me look at your stuff. She goes, your undergrad GPA was bad. I go, yes, I know. She goes, but I got 2 masters, and those grades are good. She goes, yeah, I see that. She goes,
so I've grown.
So I'm like laughing with her, and she goes, no lie. She goes, well, do you want to go to law school? And I'm like, I mean, I'll go. She was like, I'll see you Monday.
No way.
So I'm like calling my mom to see if I have shot records. I'm getting shots that I'm Googling. What if you have 2 of the same shot? Is it going to kill you, right? So because I had to have all these shots. So I go Monday, and I'm sitting there, and I have no idea what they're talking about. And I just kept thinking, there's the door. Yeah. I could walk out. No one even know I was here. I didn't lose anything. But you know what I did? I just kept showing up. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And it's daunting because everything's on a curve. You think, oh, the curve is good. No, the curve is bad. No. It's going to push some people out. There's only 40 people in there. So 3 of us are out.
Yep.
Am I going to be in that 3? I don't know what's going on. I'm running a school basically as an assistant principal. I'm doing this. I don't even know what they're talking about. A lot of these people are paralegals, so they know the terminology. I don't even know what they're saying.
Right.
But I just kept showing up, asking questions when I could.
There was movement. You did something.
Supporting my classmates, which is very unusual in law school because it's so competitive. But I'm like, I'm not going to beat you out. I'm just going to I'm playing golf here. Totally. I'm going to clap for you. Clap for you. I'm going to clap for you, but I'm going to do my best.
Right.
So, and also the thing is everyone thinks if you get a C, it's a 2.0, right?
Yep.
A C is 2. But a C minus in law school is not 2, it's 1.75. Yeah. So you can't get C minuses. My first semester I limped through. I get a C minus, a C, and a C plus. So I get a 2.0. You think, Matt, you're going to fail out.
No.
I just kept showing up.
I
just kept showing up, doing what I could. And I ended up with about a 3.0 GPA. And I studied when I could. I was doing a lot. Yep. Have kids. You're running schools. Mm-hmm. You're doing things. My 3rd year of law school, I took over as principal at a middle school that was a D. So I have no time to do anything. I'm like literally doing what I could. But one thing I am is I'm disciplined.
Yep.
So I was telling someone last night, I would go to law school for 3 hours a night, 4 days a week. Mm-hmm. I would go to the gym after that because I got to do something. But here's the thing: when people say, and if they say, well, going back to our hypothetical, you have a 1.0.
Yep.
You want to be in med school? Guess what? Stop watching TV.
Right.
I would never watch TV because every downtime I had, I was doing something valuable. I was reading. It's not fun life if that's what you want is fun,
sure.
But for me, I don't want fun. I want achievement. I want to do something. And law school for me, I do some law stuff on the side. I don't know a lot about it yet. I know a lot of theory.
Right.
But for me, it was an accomplishment that I wanted to believe I could do. And then passing the bar is a whole other beast, Now, here's a funny story about passing the bar. A lot of people don't know. It's on a curve. And they think, oh, that's great. No.
No.
You walk in the room, and they have a staunch cutoff. So for the federal portion, only 40% of the people in the room pass. For the Florida part, only 50% pass. So what you're doing is you're looking around. And I'm not lying to you. I'm looking around thinking...
You calculate and say, who are the 50 that are at the bottom?
I can't beat these people.
Yeah.
So we're at it. My first time I took it, there's 4 of us at the table. We're in a little quad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the girl next to me was a practicing attorney from D.C. moving to Florida. The guy behind her was her husband, practicing attorney in D.C. The girl behind me was an FSU grad. She graduated in May. She was taking the February bar.
Jeez.
All she had done didn't work. She didn't do anything. She didn't have
studied.
kids. She didn't have a job. She studied for 8 months. I lost. You can't beat these people.
No.
So you have to make time to study. You have to make time to, you have to cut things out that you think are valuable that aren't, you know? And that way for me, I do that still, you know?
But
and
I think part of that is also you're focused on the goal.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
Because, I mean, it's kind of like, okay, you can sit in a kayak and you can have the paddles in the kayak, right? Somebody can push your kayak for you and do all the work for you, and you push and you get somewhere. But eventually then somebody's not going to push you all the way through life.
Yeah.
Or you can just sit there.
Yeah.
Or you can decide to pick up the paddles and
Yeah,
start movement.
true.
But you have to make the choice to do
Yeah.
that. So you have to
Yeah.
make the choice to not watch TV.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might hit some sand and then you can't move and you go, okay, well, I guess I can't do it now.
Yeah.
Then no, what you have to do is, okay, maybe I have to back up a little bit to get perspective
Yeah.
and then go down
Yeah.
a different direction.
Yeah.
But I have to cause the movement.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hit ripples and I'm going to be like, oh, well, that kayak over there is much faster than my little podunk one here.
Yeah.
But guess what? Every kayak can get across the lake.
Yeah. It's a
Whether
good
they get
analogy.
there faster
Yeah.
or whether you get there slower,
Yeah.
whether it's the 1.0 or 4.7,
Yeah.
like you can get to the other side of the
Yeah.
lake even with a slow kayak.
Yeah.
You just might have to work a little harder and paddle
Yeah.
harder than the guy
Yeah.
who's got the latest
Yeah.
technology and being sponsored by Nike. You
Sure.
know, like, and that's okay. If you constantly focus on that, you're going to stay and go be like, I'm not going to paddle.
Right.
Your journey, your paddle, your kayak.
Yeah.
Get there,
Yeah.
right? Like, and sometimes it's moving back. Sometimes it's going over ripples. Sometimes it's easy as pie.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're the only one on the lake. Sometimes there's 76 other people on
Yeah,
the lake.
true.
Or you figure out your journey and you
Yeah,
figure out how to get
yeah.
there. And that's what gets you in life, right?
Yeah.
That's the American dream.
No, it really is. And I think a big part of that, and you said it, you just didn't say these exact words, it's the self-awareness.
Absolutely.
If you're not as naturally, just like I wasn't, I didn't have the background knowledge, I wasn't as naturally picking up things, I just knew I had to work that much harder. And I think to a fault, I believe that I can do things. You know, like if I have a pipe break in my house, I may call someone to fix it, but I believe I can fix it.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Me
someone,
too.
I'm not, probably not going to.
No,
right,
no.
But
No.
but that's what it is, and
Yeah.
that's the way it was when I went through law school and studying for the bar. Like I knew where I was. I believed I could do it. I was using a metric like doing practice tests. And it's like, oh, I'm only getting 30% of these questions right. Well, that's not going to cut it. I'm going to have to get better, you know, and not to say, well, let's just hope I go in there and pass the test. There was no hope for me, you know, but
I do think I'd say probably just with the people that I work with, and especially because I work with a lot of kids in their 20s, right? Coming out of school and going, now what? I've been told what to do until I graduate college, and now I'm like the big scary world. And a lot of them are kind of stuck in that place going, they're not in the 20% of people that go, I know I can do anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, my husband Greg's the same way. He's like, don't tell me I can't do anything. I will do it.
Right.
And he has done. I mean, he came from a very, very poor background, and he was like, I'm going to do this. I mean, he was 10 years old going, oh, wait, they're getting rid of all the bread that's still good. I'm going to go take the bread from the grocery stores, make sandwiches, sell it to the moms because it's dinner time and they don't want to make dinner.
Yeah.
And that's how he bought his first bike.
Oh, that's wild.
So, like, you either driven that way or you're not.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're not, because I think a lot of people listening will be like, yeah, but I don't think I can do everything.
Yeah.
Then you surround yourself with people who believe in you.
Oh,
Because
that's
if
good.
you're in that
That's good
kayak
advice.
and you're going, I can't do it because look what I'm carrying, but suddenly you have 30 people on dock being like posters and screaming your name, you're going to start moving.
Yeah, that's a good
Simply
point.
on the belief that other people believe you can do
Yeah.
it. And so self-awareness going, am I self-aware enough to go, I don't have that belief in myself, and if I don't, who are the people that believe in you?
Yeah.
And if it's not your parents or your family, your principal, your teachers, like how many teachers people can say, I was able to do this because that one teacher believed in me.
Yeah.
Find the people who are going to be your cheerleaders.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be time in life where you can't move by yourself.
Sure.
And you have to have
that's
those
good.
people.
Yeah.
You know. But it's not going to be the people that are drawing you down a bad path. It's the people that are actually getting you directed to the right path.
Yeah.
So think about those friends that you're around. I talk this about my kids all the time. Who you surround yourself is who you become.
Yeah,
period.
that's true.
And so you do get to make a choice of who are the people. And maybe you really have such self-doubt that you go, well, these people are this bad path, but maybe I can't really ever be that. No, you can be anything you want to be.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Like, that is it. We live in a country where every opportunity is there.
Yeah.
So believe in yourself and do it.
I love it.
And you're a proof of that.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that surrounding yourself, I think sometimes I oversimplify, like believing in yourself. And I think that's important for us as a school too, to just tell kids we believe you can do it. We're here to support you. We're your cheerleaders. We've got you. And my advice always to kids, if they say I want to do this, I always say you can definitely do that. Your road may be a little longer or harder than other people that have set themselves up a little bit better, but there's nothing you can't do, especially when you're coming out of high school. I mean, if you're trying to get into med school with a 2.0 college GPA, that might be a tough road unless you're acing the MCAT. But especially when you're 16, even if you had a terrible high school career, and now with the resources out there, like if you want to pass an AP test, there's a lot of resources out there to help you do that. It didn't used to be that way. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I came back from basketball world was that, back then there wasn't as much avenues to do online degrees and stuff. And, like I needed to start life and do that way. But, that's a really good point. And I think that, that's our goal here. It kind of goes with them. But I do think it's important for kids to kind of hear our personal stories and how we got here. And again, hopefully kids at West Orange know that, there's no set destination for things, I mean, our kids here sometimes get a little, they're overwhelmed by what if I don't get into this college? And my advice to them is I say, I know from my last 5 years here, and even the years before at other schools, I know kids that are at all the major colleges and they all love it. They have good feedback. And, I won't talk about them too much because hopefully I'll get them on a podcast. But one of my buddies from 4 or 5 years ago at West Orange, 4 years ago, him and I would sit every day, 7th period. Keon Williamson, he great kid, great student, band kid. He ended up going to Southeastern in Lakeland. And he wanted to kind of go the divinity route and just kind of did great things down there. And he had really good grades here, but he wouldn't have got into Duke from here.
No.
Right? He just got a full fellowship at Duke for a divinity program, doctorate, all paid for, just because of the character he provides, but also his coursework he did at undergrad and just his personality and the humanness to him. So it's really cool to see that.
But I think too, kind of again, even just using his story, he'd made decisions and he got there.
Yeah.
And I think to anybody listening, and maybe it's a student here who goes, but you don't know my story. Man, my life is hard.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
But remember, you got blank pages ahead of you.
Yeah.
And so your story either stops you or defines your life in a bad way or can propel you to defining your life. You get to decide the next step.
Yeah.
And so everybody's story matters. And so somebody goes, okay, but my story doesn't matter because it's a crap story. No, crap stories matter as much as the ones that seemingly are successful automatically.
Yeah.
And so take your story and go, what makes my story unique to me? And because of what it's taught me, how am I going to move on to fill the next blank pages of my story? To do something with my life that matters to me and to others, right? Because it's a really combo of both.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And
you heard the bell. We are actually in the principal's office, and the bell rang.
The bell rang, which is awesome. We were saved by the bell.
Yeah, right? Sometimes people will knock on the door. I'm I can't open it when I'm doing a podcast. Oh, they did? That's funny, yeah. So we're actually in the principal's. So I think we're out of time, but thank you for your time. It was awesome. Welcome. I think this is going to be fun. Over the course of the next couple months, we'll probably do some short stories from kids telling their stories. So if anybody watching wants to tell their story on here, we'd love to have you. We'll do some informational sessions so parents and students can understand the right path for them when they get here. But
it's awesome.
I loved hearing your story.
Same.
And thanks so much for sharing it.
Anytime.
Maybe we'll see you again.
Maybe.
All right.